Good morning, Ray. I'm so glad you could come in this morning for the interview. As administrator of this school, I'm interested in your perspective on child abuse and neglect. I see in your resume here that you took a course in college on this subject. Could you share some of your views on this topic with me this morning?
Yeah, I did take a class on that. It was a lecture-based class. We went over quite a few different points. It was really, really good to hear all of it. I did learn a lot from it as well. And learning how abuse as a child can affect adulthood and things like wearing dirty clothes, not taking care of yourself, having long hair, never washing yourself, dirty shoes, dirty feet, all the things those kinds of things can happen as an adult.
Good. Well, let's talk about some of those early clues or things that we can be looking for in the classroom. As a teacher in the classroom, could you tell me just one or two signs that you would find for emotional neglect, for instance? What were some things you might be looking for as a teacher?
For the kids, I'd look at facial expressions, bad manners, good, bad grades, if they need help with a lot of things, And if I notice those things, then I'll help make it more comfortable.
What are some of the physical cues that you might look for? For instance, sucking their thumb, some of those kind of things. What might you be watching for?
Those kinds of kids, there are plenty of signs for, kids that have been abused. Whenever I notice those kinds of things, I want to try to make them comfortable. I want to give them something to do. I want to help them out as much as I can, help them develop in any way I can.
Good. I know that I've had situations in my classroom when I was teaching where I found a child was withdrawn from their peers. Oftentimes I would find them over by themselves at their desks, chewing on their fingernails. What kind of things do you think you could do then to cue me as the administrator that that's happening? What would you do if you saw those types of behavior in your classroom?
If a student is deciding to be alone, then I'll go over there and communicate and try to figure out what's going on, and I want to help in any way I possibly can, make them feel more comfortable being with the group, because socializing really does help make them feel better.
Mm-hmm. I've thought about this as a child growing up deaf. Did you ever feel isolated? Did you have people watching you, thinking perhaps you were neglected? It seems like that could be one of the areas that would show up in some of our children who perhaps are having a difficulty communicating with others in their environment. How do you feel about that?
I mean, yeah, there is a sense of being alone, and it's hard to socialize. I do get that, especially growing up deaf. But I did have people to help me communicate with others. I had like a best friend to help me communicate, and that really, really helped me. Mm-hmm. It encourages me to try.
Good. Well, if it's okay, I'd like to also talk about some of the areas of physical neglect. And I know that you talked about that in your class. For instance, What would be some of the physical indicators for you if a child came to school consistently poorly dressed, that kind of thing? What other indicators would you look for of physical neglect or abuse from the home?
Well, that's a hard one to say. I mean, like you said, if they have dirty clothes or consistently dressed odd, or they're scared in front of their parents, and stuff like that. Maybe their parents are neglecting them or abusing them at home. Maybe one of their parents is drunk, or leaving them somewhere, whatever. And I'd really want to try to help them. Is best thing for them would be to socialize, and that in itself is its own kind of therapy.
What about conferencing with the parents? How do you feel you could approach that? If you saw, for instance, a child who came to school hungry, or you began to detect malnourishment, a child that didn't have energy to participate, those kind of things, how do you feel you could approach that in your classroom?
When I recognize that in a child, you could see some of those things, like, bags under their eyes, they can't lift very much, or the way they walk is very wobbly, then you need to go talk to the parents, what's going on at the home? Are they getting enough to eat? Maybe the parents are just not even caring about them, whatever, eating without them, not telling them food's made, all those kinds of different things. Or maybe when they do get food, it's only vegetables and they don't want to eat it, and then they don't eat anything at all because the parents won't give them anything to eat. And yeah.
Well, that sounds very helpful. I know that our school does have a reduced meal program, the cost for hot meals here on, at the facility. Perhaps one thing you could also suggest to them is that they look into getting their child on a program at the school. There's a variety of things that I feel I can do as an administrator in this school and as a teacher to help a child have a positive school experience. And so I was just hoping today that we would have a chance to just see how well we can do in our facility to facilitate the best possible learning environment. I was also thinking about how we might talk to parents and bring them into our work with the child. Can you think of other things that you could possibly do as the teacher in regards to physical or emotional neglect from the home?
Yeah, sure. And I could help with getting them a way to socialize. I could help with getting them in the meal program. You give the parents resources and help. Let them know about the programs, and then they can help support the child. Maybe the parents are divorced and only one of them works, and they're really scraping by. One parent has the money to provide the lunch and the other one doesn't. So, I don't know about other parents, if ones that are like addicted to drugs or selling, or, trading drugs for food, that's a whole other thing. I think at that point the child would be placed in foster care, get them a better life, or send the parents to counseling to get them to stop taking drugs, really think about their child is most important. Need to have a good
Right.
home life.
You know, you're right, Ray. It seems to me that a lot of the children that we find that have gone through physical or emotional neglect come from single-parent families or perhaps low-income families. But I've also found out over the years of working with children that oftentimes neglect can occur in homes where there are both parents. Perhaps they're both working. There's other kinds of neglect, and I think that we shouldn't just stereotype and think that it's just going to be the low income or those who seem to be in poverty conditions. I have detected neglect in the other types of environments also. What type of emotional neglect do you think could come about in a family situation where both parents, for instance, are working and are out of the home?
Well, when both the parents are out working, the child is all by themselves. They have to be responsible for themselves. You know, they really need time with their parents. Like, one takes some time off of work or, come home for a lunch break to spend time with their kid. Different people are different in different jobs, and I understand that. But, they need to be able to spend some time at home.
Right. I know that I have dealt with parents in the past who are workaholics, and they assume because they are caring for the physical needs of the child that the emotional needs are also being met. And I think as teachers, we need to constantly be able to watch for neglect in the emotional arena for children who may have all the physical needs met, but emotionally are starved for affection and attention and time giving from their caretakers. Right.
Right, yeah, I totally agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
We really need to be able to socialize, have friends, even if both parents are gone, like, they need to really at least have something to do. Like, if they're alone without their parents and, they get bored, they get scared, they're alone all night.
Well, I really appreciate, Ray, what appears to me that you have looked at the whole gamut of child abuse and neglect. And I think that it will be good if we do indeed offer you a position on our staff, that you could come to us with some good qualifications that would help us in detecting these things in the classroom. I appreciate the time that you've spent with me today. I think it's been profitable for both of us, and I do look forward to spending more time with you in the future. And
Thank you.
What I'll be doing is I will be going through some more resumes, and I'll be getting in touch with you. I would say in the next couple of days. Will you be in the area so I can contact you?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Good. Okay. Well, thank you, Ray. I appreciate, again, as I said, that you came in today and took the time to talk with me. Thank you.
Thank you.